Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Yeah, so this is text 4, chapter 6, 3rd canto.
Is it text 5?
That's what the mark is.
I think it's supposed to be
Yesterday
5.
it was 4, Maharaj. Yesterday they read 4.
No, they moved the mark. Okay, it's text 5. Text 5.
Parena
Vishata
Vishata
Swasmin
Swasmin
Matraya
Matraya Vishwashig Gana Shukshoban Anyoyan Ashadya Yasmin Lokaha Chara Achara Parena Vishata Swasmin Matraya Vishwashiganaha Chakshushan Yasmin Lokas Chara Charaha Parena Vishata Swasmin Matraya Vishwashigana Chakshubanyam Asadya Yasmin Lokas Chara Charaha.
Okay.
Pranena Vishata Swasmin
Pradena Vishata Swasmin
Matraya Vishvashrigana
Matraya Vishwashrigana
Chuksho Banyonyam Ashadya
Shukshobanyonyam Ashadya
Yasmin Lokaschara Chara
Yasmin Lokas Chara Chara Parena Vishata Swasmin Matraya Vishwashrigana Chakshobanyonyam Ashadya Yasmin Lokas Chara Charaha Parena Vishata Swasmin Matraya Vishwashrigana Chakshobanyonyam Ashadya Yasmin Lokas Chara Chara.
Ladies. We don't have a game. You got it?
I just did.
Huh?
I just read it. Do you want? Are you read it again?
She just read it.
Okay. Parena
By the Lord Vishata Thus entering
Swasmin by his own self.
by his own self.
Matraya, by a plenary portion.
By a plenary portion.
Vishwashrik, the elements of universal creation.
The elements of universal creation. Ganaha,
all. Chakshoba,
transformed.
Anyonyam, one another.
Asadya, having obtained. Yasmin,
that which. Lokaha, the planets. Chara achara, movable and immovable. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Can you repeat that? As the Lord in his plenary portion.
As the Lord in his plenary portion.
Entered into the elements of the universal creation. They transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems. And all movable and immovable creations rest. The elements of the cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in its plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as the spirit is within the water, as long as the spirit within the matter can increase as needed, but without the spirit, matter stops increasing. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body of a living entity, the body increases to a required size. But a dead body, which has no spiritual consciousness, stops increasing. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called the Virat Rupa because the Lord is within it in its plenary portion. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tukarakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajajatam Samagana Raghunathan Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Chakantam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschachali Sakara. Vanchakal kalpataruvyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitaram pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Namo Mahavadhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Krishna Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari. So the universal form is a mystery thing because it's said to be imaginary, but then it's covered a lot. Different parts of the Bhagavatam talk about it. Second canon, the whole thing. And, so that is, but the universe is a form. It has a form, and then to have neophyte people try to understand that God has a form, the universal form, and it says like the hairs on his head are the trees, and the hairs on his body are the grass, and the bones are the mountains, and the mountains are the bones, and the rivers are the veins, and all. There's a whole long thing like that. So it should be that help us, because people go sightseeing and they look at mountains and they look at trees, but they don't think about Krishna. Unfortunately, if you take a tour and somewhere and the tour guides are telling you that they never mention God created all this wonderful stuff. So many exhibitions like that. But that the idea is to get some idea to think of the form of the Lord. But there's different universal forms of it, like the one Arjuna saw, that's different. The one Mother Yasoda saw in Krishna's mouth is different. I don't know how many others. Different times Krishna shows different universal forms. He showed something when he went to the Kauravas and tried to supposedly to make peace. Krishna didn't want peace, but Yudhishthira asked him to go, so he went. He knew that, and then they were so stupid, Duryodhana and Karna, they were thinking, Krishna came by himself, and they thought Yudhishthira is, confident now because he has Krishna. So if we kidnap Krishna and put him in the prison, then Yudhishthira will give up and he won't want to fight. So stupid. So they tried to grab Krishna, but then he just kept being somewhere else. And every time they tried to get him, he's over here, he's over there. And he showed some kind of universal form there also, but not like the one Arjuna saw. The one Arjuna saw was a special one. So I had my experience, one of the first pictures I ever saw of Krishna at the time, I think, as far as I can remember, there were only 2 posters in the shop. They're beautiful Brijbasi posters, which we don't have anymore, but they were wonderful artwork. It was the universal form. It's something like the cover that was on Jimi Hendrix's album, and that picture, Have you seen that? It was the second album. He was criticized. And when they reissued it, the Hindus tried to stop it. But anyway, they had the universal form, but they put his face in it. Wasn't very good. Even when I saw that, I thought, this isn't supposed to be God, this is something wrong. But there was a beautiful universal form. form with, Arjuna and all these gigantic things that were beautiful. I was so much attracted to that. And then I read much later after I was a devotee that that's, to attract the neophytes. After a while, you're not so interested. Arjuna didn't like it, He said, no, just listen, I don't want to see this anymore. He was asking to see how you come into the material world. So here it's saying that Krishna enters into all the different elements and then, creates this whole universe. Everything is actually Krishna. It's simultaneously Krishna and not Krishna. Because it's Krishna's expansion, but then an expansion of Krishna is the same as Krishna. So, the Bhagavatam does put a lot of time into talking about the universal form. So it's not like it's not important. Because in order for us to really understand Krishna, we need to know all these things. Like, I was reading second canon this week, and questions of Purgatory. So that sometimes you read in the Bhagavatam and you think, why is this in the Bhagavatam? But it's answering Cricket's questions. He had such a long list of questions. And the first one was, how did the soul come into a material body? And how does that happen? But then he was asking to explain all the planets, and explain this, and explain that. So many things. So then Sukadeva is answering all those things throughout the rest of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is like the second canon, the list of scheduled incarnations. So it basically gives a summary of the whole Bhagavatam. Because each canto is mostly dedicated to one incarnation. So it talks a little bit about each incarnation, giving introduction. And this is all Brahma before he created anything. he's predicting. And he even predicted, Vrindavan and Krishna's Leela and all these different things. So Krishna has a plan. But what it's all meant to bring us to, the lotus feet of the Lord. People want to take care of myself. The problem is that you just surrender to Krishna, and then you take care. That's the only way to take care of yourself. Take shelter of Krishna. Take care of Krishna, and he'll take care of you. Devotees, they want to take care of Krishna. Someone was asking me the other day, there's one verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Krishna's saying, for those who think of me as a master and them as subordinate and them as my servants, I don't become subordinate to them. So they were saying, why does he say that? Right? Because those people, they're thinking Krishna's the master, he'll protect me, he'll take care of me, he'll give me whatever I want. But he becomes subordinate to those who have pure love. And like, the gopis, Mother Soda, the cowherd boys, all those pure devotees who have only love for Krishna. They sometimes know he's the Supreme Lord, but they forget it right away. They don't focus on it. So Krishna becomes their servant. He was a servant of the Pandavas. That's why he went to Duryodhana and tried to make peace. Same time, he stirred up the whole situation. He did so much, he drove Arjuna's chariot. Arjuna was telling him, go this way, go that way. And he was doing it. But actually, this body is like a chariot, yantra vigrani mayaya. And we're all telling Krishna, take me over here, Krishna is very kind like that. No matter what kind of body we take, whether it's a pig or a dog or a demigod or, Krishna comes as a super soul. Comes in the heart and arranges everything for us. So devotees realize that this is Krishna. When death is coming, here comes Krishna. Krishna, he works in very interesting ways. My godbrother Sura Prabhu was quite an amazing character. He left his body last week, so yesterday they were having the memorial for him. And so many people, he was had the Temple Bhajan band, they were very famous going to all the yoga schools and everything. And so the Swami from the Vedanta Society was speaking, because he said Sura would come and chant at their place so many times. The Vedanta Society is mostly Mayavadi, but they loved the kirtan of Krishna. So he was glorifying Sura. Then he was telling how Sura was fearless at death. He had a lot of problems, and so one time he was home by himself, and he just fell on the floor. He couldn't move. He was bleeding internally or something, and so he told the story. He said, "Okay, Krishna, I'm ready to stay. I don't have to stay here anymore." And he didn't have his phone or anything. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't call out. But then somehow he could reach the cover of his bed. When he pulled it, and his phone fell on his chest. So he was thinking, "Oh, Krishna, what do you want me to call 911 or what?" So he called 911 and they saved him for another few years, I guess. But Krishna has a plan for everybody. According to our karma and according to our desires. We can't, get more than what we deserve. But when someone really surrenders to Krishna, then they might get, who knows what, so the servant of the Lord, of the rich man, gets in the same facilities, right? Drives a car, lives in the house, has a credit card to go shopping, gets a lot of freedom if he's a dear servant. So Krishna can give much more than if we're using everything for his service, he can give us much more than we would ordinarily get by just working in the material world. But devotees, we shouldn't be too concerned with all that. We should just be wanting to serve Krishna. And we should study any part of the Bhagavatam. Mind tends to think, well, this part, this is just filler or something, but no, it's all Krishna. The creation of the material world is also Krishna's Leela. And it's not the same Leela, but, if someone thinks, well, no, we don't need to hear about this, we only read the 10th canto, which many people do, only talk about the gopis or something. That's not what our acharyas did. Our acharyas were, reading the whole Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya, he'd like to read about Dhruva and Prahlad especially. Devotees ask him why, Of course, we're not supposed to try to think, well, I know why the Lord is doing something. But it's explained that he appreciates it. They suffered to get what they had, to do their service. So he appreciated them more than the people of Vaikuntha who just are there, and already in Vaikuntha. They were dedicated to in spite of so much difficulty. And the Goswamis, they commented on everything in the Bhagavatam and other scriptures, even though they had come from the Goloka. I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Sanatana Swami. So I got to the part where Lord Chaitanya was describing all these Vaikuntha Vishnus, and this one has a club here, and a conch there, and a flower there. I started thinking, now scriptures, this is not. But somehow, so saved me, and I thought, yeah, Sanatana Swami, Lord Chaitanya is teaching this to Sanatana Swami, so who am I to think it's not important? I don't need this, so it must be important. Because then we can understand more, these are just tiny little separated energies of Krishna. Even the, Vishnu or Mahan Sneyasya Kama Vishesho, even the Mahavishnu is just a portion of a portion of a portion of Krishna. Balaram and then Sankashanta, Yunanani Buddha, and the spiritual world, another one, and in the material world there's another quadruple expansion, and then there's Mahavishnu, very far removed. And as far as I've seen, most of the Hindus that know about Krishna, they all know about Krishna, but they know about Garbhodaka Krishna. What do you think? That's, they don't really know beyond this universe. So that's even more separate. But it all comes from Krishna. Sarvasya Prabhu Matak Sarvam Pravartate. Well, this universe is the smallest universe, but I guess all the universes are more or less the same. There's bigger Lord Brahmas, more heads, describing hundreds, thousands of heads, quite inconceivable. 4 heads is quite inconceivable. But for Krishna, everything is easy, everything is possible. So I have to have faith in chanting the holy name. Then Krishna reveals himself. Harinama, 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 Kevalam, Kalundas, Devanas, Devanas, Kevalam. There's no other way in the Kali Yuga. And it's the best way, anyway, in any age. Even in Ramayana, when Lord Rama went to the forest and met all these sages, some were just chanting the name of God. There was different types of meditation. Some were just chanting the name. And that's always been there. The Mahamantras from the spiritual world, Goloka Prema, Goloka, it comes from Goloka. Goloka Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. It's not some ordinary thing. It's not created in this material world. Like there's so much music, so much art, so many things that are created in the material world by the mind of the creator. And like art, now, so-called modern art is really mad, right? Because the artist's mind is so disturbed. So Prabhupada's art became very, very popular, this kind of art. Because it's beautiful and it's spiritual. And there's people in it. It has love and all these things. Because what do we want? Really, what does everybody want? They want love. So many songs about love, so many stories about love. fighting in the war, but the Ramayan war was fought because of Sita, because Ram had love for Sita, and Ravana had not love, it looked like, but he had lust. But he wanted to be the enjoyer. He wanted to take Lakshmi without Vishnu, which is a big mistake, but that's what so many people are trying to do these days. They want money, they want joy, but they don't want to worship God. So they may get it for a while by Maya waking them, but they'll have to get some terrible reactions. So Ram, who could have, Prabhupada said he could have created millions of speeches, but he dedicated his life to giving her back and destroying Ravana and his whole kingdom for such mentality. Ravana is like lust personified. He was so lusty that even though, everyone was telling him, and just give Sita back, and Ram will, he won't bother you. But he couldn't do it. No, I want. And they were telling him Ram is Vishnu, there's no way you can fight him, you can't defeat him, and he wouldn't go for it. And even in the battle, after 3 days, Ravana actually came out because, his army was getting devastated, and he came out to fight, and he came face to face with Ram. So they were exchanging their weapons, and Ram was just knocking him out, and he'd never experienced that before, that any weapon would hurt him or anything. Ram just kept smashing him, smashed his chariot, broke his bow, knocked off his helmet, just knocked him practically unconscious. And he was on the ground, and then Ram told him, "You better go home and take rest now because you're too tired. I don't want to kill you, and this, it's not fair." So he went home and totally bewildered and confused. That's when he called Kumbhakarna. It was not easy to wake him up, but, and Kumbhakarna said, "I told you to give her back." No, I'm the king, you have to do whatever I say, So, and then the Mahabharata war was all because of abuse to Draupadi. Nowadays people think, women are just objects of whatever they want. Many people think like that. So much abuse going on and exploitation and everything. But it's these, especially the Mahabharata, it shows, they tried to take away the wife of the Pandavas, and they tried to abuse her, and they tried to, denigrate her, and that was the cause of the war. Prabhupada says that the whole Mahabharata war was because of that. Of course, there were many other intrigues along the way, but because of this lust, Duryodhana also, everybody was lusty after Draupadi. She was so beautiful, and so she's very dangerous to have her around, because every man just went wild when they saw her. And there's several stories throughout the book.
Yeah.
And so Duryodhana wanted her, Karna wanted her, they all wanted Draupadi, but they didn't get her. They were all at the Swami-Vara, but they couldn't compete. The test was too much, especially for Arjuna. And she was born, if you want to call it birth, she just came out of the fire, but to marry Arjuna. Her father, Draupadi, he had the yagya to get a daughter who could marry Arjuna, and a son that could kill Dronacharya. So he got that, and anyway, they didn't like it, and So they hold dynasty. Not only they got killed, but their whole dynasty got killed. Krishna doesn't fool around. So we're Kali Yuga, we don't have that kind of war. We're at war with Maya, but the weapon is the holy name. The weapon is the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, the holy name, prasadam. That's the weapon to fight Maya. There's no political solution, there's no vaccination that's going to stop disease, or, birth, death, disease, and old age is part of the world, But the holy name, if we uplift more and more people's consciousness, and it is happening, so many, it's inconceivable how many people are chanting Hare Krishna, how many people are, following some regulated principles, reading some books, But we have to be out, meeting them again and again and associating with them. Like, my experience is when I go for trying to do books, I don't know if everybody, I either meet people that I have it, or I have no money, to get two different responses. Once in a while different, but if they have it, then, are you reading it? Some people say yes, some people, and I have to encourage them, at least they were blessed to take the book and give it a donation. Some reason or other, the super soul in their heart knew that they're, qualified. So we have to take time, we have to meet these people again and again. We have to bring them like on Tuesday night, that's a really good program. And like 2 boys came the other week, they just, all they got was the invitation card. They had no money, they didn't take a book, but they came right away. And they really like it. So, we need to increase all this. We need programs all over the world. We need devotees all over the world. We need Harinam Sankirtan all over the world. We need whatever we can do. Krishna's giving good facility now with the internet, so we can reach out to more and more people going anywhere. So, Harinam Ekakevalam. The universal form, Advaita, actually, Lord Chaitanya showed the universal form to Advaita Acharyas. There's several, artistic, one artist that did one of the universal form, he told me, he studied all the different descriptions of the universal form he could find in all the different scriptures, and meditated for a long time before he could make this painting, And that's like the universe form that Arjuna saw. Arjuna wasn't seeing the gigantic universe. He was just seeing the Lord in all his different, ferocious features and beautiful features and everything. And you could see past, present, and future. You could see all the Kauravas getting devoured. And then he said, no, I don't like this. Take it away. Devotee. And he wants to see Krishna. Then he saw the 4-arm form, and then he got the 2-arm form. Then he was passed. So we have the 2-arm form, we have the holy name, we have the Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, the most merciful. So we're very blessed. So, thank you very much. What time is it? Yeah. Okay. So, any questions or comments? Comments or questions?
I had an interesting experience yesterday. Me and Miss on, we were doing this, he was doing a book table and I was singing. And very few people came by and gave me a donation, and very few people stopped by his book table. But then he started playing the drum with me, and we were both singing. And then Krishna sent several people to the book table. It was funny, But before, when we'd been doing our own thing, very few people came by. But when we got together and we chanted together, then Krishna sent like 3 people, and one of them bought a Gita for $10 and took an SSR. So it was interesting to see. It's like Krishna was reciprocating with our cooperation and doing a 2-man kirtan instead of a 1-man kirtan.
And sometimes the small one is more attractive. The big one sometimes scares me.
Yeah. Sometimes
the
it's
big loud one, and they come on the table, but you can't talk to them.
Yeah.
Especially, I can't shout like Chaitanya can talk really loud. Mahotsa can just like overpower any of it, like a train could be going by. Shout so loud that people would forget everything except him. And the people would say something and I can't hear them either. It's old years, but sometimes it's like one person sitting down chanting and get more donations. It's for the best. Anyway, every book counts. We never know what's going to come out from any one book. So, Prabhupada always say New York is the most important project of Prabhupada. I don't know when he said that, but he said it about many places. But it's definitely important. It's the birthplace of the Hare Krishna movement. We met one guy at the park, and he was a tour guide. And he said he always takes people to Tompkins Square Park and tells them this is where the Hare Krishna started. I said, when you take him to 26th Avenue, he didn't know about 26th Avenue, but he knew about the Tompkins Square Park. So he always takes it, when he does the tour, he shows people. So the Hare Krishna is quite famous. But so many people know nothing about it, never heard it, or they've heard it, but they never noticed it, so we have to keep trying. Anyone else? It's another stormy Monday.
I'm going to go out and sing for a couple hours in some subway station if anybody has some free time. Probably around 9:45.
The party's supposed to go on. You're going to go out earlier, is it?
Is that?
You're going to go out earlier?
Yeah, maybe 9:45 to 11:45, something like that.
Find out. Harinam, personification of Harinam. Wherever he goes, he just goes out and chants. He gets sometimes 1, 2, 3 people to go with him. Chants for a few hours. And so when party in, I can't remember what country it was, one Eastern Europe country, they were out for 11 hours.
Really?
Huh?
I had one friend who got me to do 3 12-hour Harinams in Dublin, Ireland, and he got 2 of my friends from Newcastle to do a 24-hour Harinam there.
Outside.
Yeah. Because on the weekends, the people they're partying the whole night.
Yeah.
If you do from like 4 a.m. on Saturday morning to 4 a.m. Sunday morning, you get a lot of people. I wasn't there. I was back in America because it was October, but they did it.
Yeah, then people are crazy. They're just so desperately looking for happiness, pleasure. And they're doing everything to cause them more suffering. They don't know it. Right? Whatever they think is going to give them pleasure, it causes more suffering. And there's all kinds of doctors came in after a few days and said, we're going to take you off the painkillers. He said, we didn't know we were on painkillers. There was so much pain. And he said, I realize you can't enjoy all the time, but you can suffer all the time. You break. It was recovered on so many broken bones. Okay, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Gita. Śrīmad-Govinda Gita. And we won't ask him to show the universal form. No temples have it. Right? But obviously it's important because so many times in the Bhagavatam. Jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Gita. Gaur Premanand